Hey everybody, and welcome to the Binary Ninja live stream. I'm your host, as always, Jordan. I don't know, I'm saying it like that. I'm Jordan. Today is a special episode. This is a really good one. We actually have a surprise guest who's here to show us some neat stuff, so it won't just be me talking. Let's see if I can get this to work. Peter, there you are.
Surprise.
Surprise,
It's
Peter.
me.
It's another Vector 35 person. Yeah, but that's all right. So excellent. So the goal behind having some of the other people though is because they're working on much neater things. I just play with some kind of less interesting plugins, but Peter and a couple of other guys are working on other folks are working on really interesting advanced stuff. And so this is a little sneak treat for everybody with that. Now before we actually show people, do you want to like tease it and kind of talk about it, Peter, or like what do you?
Sure. Well, so you know, we've been working on some stuff behind the scenes. Uh, in particular, I've been working on a bunch of CPG like stuff. So code property graph stuff, and Tim, another Vector 35 employee, has been working on uh, something. Well, one of the pieces that he's been working on is called component generation, and so
And
the
we did
idea
show off
behind
a brief snippet of that, right? So if people are interested in
yeah
that, we'll post a link in the description. But in at Josh Watson's YouTube channel or Twitch channel and YouTube channel, we did like a preview of that component stuff, and it enables a bunch of
yeah
other cool things, right?
yeah and the kind of idea behind component generation is that when you're doing binary analysis, um, frequently functions are not. A lot of people try to do their analysis and use functions as a boundary for doing their analysis, and that's not always the best approach. So if you can kind of draw your circle a little bit long, people usually have this like, oh, I'm either going to do my analysis on a function, or they're going to do their analysis on all functions in the entire binary, right? And that's kind of like a false dichotomy. You don't have to do that. You could, let's say, find strongly connected components, strongly connected
In the
functions.
physics sense or the
Um,
math sense or a RE sense on strongly connected. Which do we mean here?
yeah, I mean it in the sense that we determine them to be strongly
Okay, yeah.
connected.
So we're defining this relationship.
Yes. So this means like parameters, essentially, like a function um, passes some shared state to another function. So some kind of data flow relationship. Um, and you can then kind of define, much like how you would in normal code, right? Uh, you have a module, right? And that module has uh, functions that are just helper functions, and they're only used from within this module. And there are APIs for the module that are the place where you get an input and an output.
Data
Um,
variables that exist like in that context, but aren't used anywhere else.
right. Types are could be related to just a single component, or they could be shared between components. So the idea behind this analysis is to kind of tease out the objects that existed in the original code, and the different components, the modules, the classes, the groupings of code that naturally existed, and then show them as such. And so that analysis is it's done. It's still being worked on.
Which is it? Those are two different things. It exists, but it's being improved, I guess, is a clarification. You say
It
it's done.
exists,
Yeah.
And it's pretty good, and it's getting better as well. It's
All right.
also being worked on.
Yeah, I
So,
saw he's got some like
um,
recent research he's doing to like optimize it, and just like recently it was
yeah,
continuing to update it.
there's lots of stuff that is going on, but so that's the stuff Tim's been doing. I've been focused more on the data flow graphs and stuff, and being able to make queries between different components within the graph. And so we just like recently started integrating his stuff and my stuff, and I was like, oh well, like maybe if we could make this kind of graph, this would be really cool. It'd be really helpful. It would kind of give people a visual representation of this. And so let me
Go for it.
show you. Well, we'll start from the beginning. And so here's this product this application
I've
you
seen
might
that
have seen
before.
before.
Yeah, I think I've seen
It's
that.
called Binary Ninja. So first, Sidekick is we've got a few new tabs open, or doc widgets open here. So one, we've got this like activity that's being kicked off. This particular binary that we're looking at has dwarf debug symbols. So we're actually pulling those out, applying them to the binary.
By the way, you might want to make your font size a little bit bigger. Just looking at it, I think that might be a little too small.
I did make it bigger, but
well, because we're still doing like we can still see our faces. I can also just go turn that off too. To just show that. Let me see if I can fiddle with that.
So we can actually, if we have dwarf information, it's pretty easy to find the components, because you can just look at source files, what the source file information is, and see which functions are within the source file. We can also do this when there is no source at all, or no dwarf debug or PDB stuff, but we can also use the dwarf information when it's available. And so this component has the types that are associated with this stuff, as well as all the functions. So I kind of took this information and I applied it to a graph, essentially. And so now what each of these nodes in the graph are is a different component in the binary. So we have the node that or the component that is currently selected has a highlight on it, and the line and the function that's selected has a highlight as well. So when we can click on these, go to the various functions, and as we scroll through here, how is that not getting updated? This is very beta,
Yeah,
Kevin.
this is still under development. Well, and one thing is worth
under heavy development currently.
One thing to clarify too is you're not using any like internal Binja APIs. Like that's the FlowGraph API. You're using like the Python to do callbacks and sync things in between. Sidekick is itself just a plugin to Binja. So these are all like plugins on top of it.
Right. Yeah. So.
Oh, I didn't see this.
And so as we move through, we can check out the different relationships. And what these edges are is these are call edges. So that says, this is like, let me take the sum of all of the calls in this
from any of these functions that exist in this component.
From any of these functions to any other component.
Okay.
And any calls from any of these components into this. So you can see, like, okay, the IGMP and ICMP both use the IP header. And it's like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. And all of those call into, you know, this stream object. It's like, okay, all that makes sense as well. And it's kind of like you know, a call graph, but I think it's much it's much more condensed down than a call graph.
You don't see every edge between every function.
Every edge, every function, and you know, you still don't have any kind of idea of, like, well, was that like a private well, I guess I should explain private versus public. So so this is a grouping of functions, and if you have a function which is called only from within this grouping, then it is a private function. So we know that the only things that call this, and we can see over here in the cross references,
are another function within that.
You know, it's only called by parse IPv6 header. And when we go over here, okay, this is only parsed, you know, called by these two other functions. So we know that, you know, these essentially, like, we can kind of disregard in terms of, like, our program understanding, if we can understand what the component as a in general does.
Now, and to clarify too, like in this case, you got this grouping, you got these names from the dwarf information that was in the file.
Right.
But this works without dwarf, although it just wouldn't be quite as descriptive, right?
Right. You wouldn't have beautiful names, and you would have to go in and perhaps label these components yourself.
But it changes your workflow, right? Instead of like reversing every individual function, right? You can sort of start analyzing a component at a time. You could be like, oh, this is all the whatever code. This is all the whatever code. And you
analyze one of the functions in here, and you're like, oh, this is like doing some network stuff. Let me just rename the component network stuff.
Does that work from that view right now? Can you hit end?
What's that?
Can you hit end on that right now?
I cannot.
Oh, sorry. I asked for a feature. It's not there. It will though, right? That's part of the.
It will. That was one of the things I was thinking about working on today, but
life
didn't get around to it.
Yeah.
So so you'll, and not only that is like, okay, what if we have all these they're all sub underscore, you know, 40001.
That's right.
Sub underscore 0005. Well, when we rename the component network stuff, let's find all of the things within that component and then call it network stuff underscore 4001. You know, like network stuff underscore private, you know, 4007. Right. So now you've just like, okay, now I can label like 10 functions at a time instead of just one. You know, in fact, we could like just automatically give it names instead of, you know, component, like just sub underscore. We could say, oh, this is component 0
private,
under
public,
whatever. Yeah. And kind of start to give you better names to work with rather than sub underscore. Sub underscore is a horrible name. We have so much more information available. Like let's actually use that information we can synthesize to actually give good information.
And then I think some of our other work, which is much further out, might even do even better than that. But I think for now, we'll go this far, right?
Not talk about that till
it exists. I want to make sure stuff
till it becomes more mature at least. So there's one other thing that I did, and I'm still like trying to figure out if this is even interesting or useful. And you guys tell me if you think it is. And well, it doesn't work. Okay, great.
No, it's not useful then. Do I win the prize? Am I correct?
It is unuseful. Thank you. So there's some bug somewhere. I don't know. But here's what it is. So there's a component level view and then a function level. So this is like given all of given this component, what is the relation of this component to every other component? And the function level is I've got a function selected. So what is the relationship of this function to all the other components and intra component functions? So
okay, so write data is inside of stdio.h and it calls into other functions in there. Like
write data is inside the stream is inside stream. Okay. So like when we go to I don't know why that doesn't work, but that view, okay. So write data is actually not called by anything within stream and doesn't call anything within stream.
That's why it doesn't show up there. Okay.
Right. So we don't see any of the edges. This isn't a great one actually. But we can see it's called by all of these other components, and it calls vfprintf. So let's look at a different one. This is
and you're navigating just
component.
That workflow is you're navigating to the other function from within that same view too, right? So you're exploring the relationships using that view.
Whatever node is like highlighted here, that's the one that.
And you just double clicked on that function from the other view to get there?
Yeah, just single click.
Okay.
Oh, but you're supposed to be able to double click when you're in component flow. You're supposed to be able to double click and then go to that. I don't know why that's not working, but okay. So this is like a function. It is the view from this function. It's not saying that there's no other calls to this or no other calls to these. It's saying, given like this myopic look at this one function, what is his view of the rest of the world? Like, who does he call and who calls him?
So it's a little bit like proximity view, I guess, in IDAS. It has that.
There's certainly some analogs to that.
Which and that's it makes sense. Like a lot of people even say when you first reverse in function, you look at strings and then you look at a function and you just click call and highlight call and look for all the calls, right? That's essentially what we're doing. You're pulling out just the call relationships here, where you can see a lot more on the screen. Although you don't necessarily get internal structure, but that's not the point. It's not what you're trying to get here.
Right. So so there's another level to this. So like, let's say you're reversing main, you're like, okay, it prints out a usage, it sets up the socket, doesn't accept loop, and okay, it calls some other stuff. Oh, it's gonna parse the header. But then you want to, so then I guess I should have said, oh, you want to look at the whole program first, and then you decide, okay, I want to look at main. And then you're like, okay, let me look at some flows from within main. Now I'm really interested in, well, what is the data that's being passed back and forth between, from main to these other components? Or what is, parse Ethernet header, what kind of data structures is it operating on? You could probably guess what kind of data structures it's operating on. But this is, so the next level would be to kind of show this from a data flow perspective. I've done some work with that. And so the next step is to kind of integrate that, to integrate like the data flows, the types as well.
So we had a comment in chat, by the way, just says it looks really, really useful. It says it looks like a more organized call graph. It could quickly answer, how can I reach this bit of weird code question, or how do I get here? I think the other thing to add on that is this is also more about like the overall structure of the binary, right? Especially when you combine that component view with this sort of flow view, is it's not just like this millions of functions calls these other, like if you actually look at a normal call graph in any reasonable size binary, it's useless, right? Like it's just way too big. There's way too many functions. But this lets you actually step back, look at a much bigger piece of the binary, and still have it be kind of a useful sort of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's all I got.
All right, so here's the main question, because I know people are gonna be asking this. What's like, when can I get it? How are they gonna be able to get it? How is this?
That's a good question. We're, it's under such heavy development. It's definitely going to be, minimum 6 months before we're ready to do anything with this. This is currently all written in Python as a plugin.
And we tend to,
as such.
Yeah, we tend to prefer like long term to maintain stuff a little faster, a little more performant, C++ or Rust or something like that.
But this component, this
but like the views
this whole system also has some like web-based components as well, because it has to query for so we've worked on some other things that allow you to essentially have type libraries. Think of type libraries for like everything, right? Like so the way this gets its information from some of these externals is through this external service. So it's a little bit of like, okay, well, how do we, this is a little step away from our current, like how we currently market Binary Ninja as this standalone tool that does everything. And it's kind of moving a little bit towards like, okay, most of the stuff is done here on your machine, but we've also got like this cloud portion that, if you allow Binary Ninja to connect to it, then you get this additional enhancement. So it's obviously we have to figure out what licensing and
how's it gonna work. So I don't
business.
I ask because I don't want to get people too excited. This is not dropping real soon, but it is real. It is working. We actually just got a question in chat as well about how does this work without debugging? And the answer is actually pretty well. So I guess there's two parts to the question. The first part you didn't really ask because I think you assumed it wouldn't actually work. But the answer is this actually does work out of the box without debugging information. You do get the clustering, all the relationships. The only thing you miss are sort of like the pretty names, right? Like literally the graphs would look exactly the same, assuming our code analysis was the same. So I will caveat this with, if you have perfect debugging symbols, your function recovery and relationships between functions are going to be more accurate than if you don't. So with that caveat, we will there could be some differences there, but other than that, it will do all the clustering. It'll actually find these components, it'll pull them out into that tree view on the left, it'll be able to do the graph view, you get all that stuff. And then yes, the plan for it is to manually be able to kind of curate it as well. And actually, I don't know, does it do that currently?
I have no idea if this will even work. I'm just opening up a random binary.
Yeah.
I've got some errors, but I don't know if it's gonna work or not.
Give it a go. Doesn't hurt to try. I'm really curious. So the goal is that this should still work. You should still get a lot of the stuff even without that. And I don't think you just sort of like manually manage that. We were talking actually about drag and drop, right? Like so you could like drag a function between different components and stuff, or if you could um, at one point. But I don't know if does it currently support that? Do you know, or is it just like a
Yeah, no, you can't do any of the drag and drop
yeah?
stuff.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
that didn't work, and I don't know why.
yeah,
It's
this is
still,
very demo phase.
and this was like, it's probably because of my code,
Yeah,
like
not the scikit
not
stuff.
due to the component stuff.
Yeah,
Because
maybe next week we can come back on and demo. We could show it off again without stuff because it does work without debug snippets as well.
yeah, and hopefully by then I could get some of the like renaming stuff working. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
it's all written in Python, so it's super easy to get like,
prototype level, fast, quick, and
yeah,
yeah.
compared to like doing it as part of the core and like, okay, now I've got to pass all these, you know, AP, like pass all these things through a C++ API to a Python API, and you know,
Oh wait,
our API is great, but it takes some work.
there is some work associated with getting things all
With having a good API,
yeah
right?
and having to kind of wire it all through. Cool. Well, thanks for joining me on stream.
Yeah.
You're welcome to hang around if you want. But I'm gonna switch back over. I think
Yep.
actually, if I oh wait, my other machine. Awesome. This is gonna take a second because my other machine just my other machine just went to sleep because I sat for too long listening to you. So let's see if I switch to here. Can you still talk, Peter?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. Now, so I'm gonna I have CTF time up here. I was doing some other stuff. I'm gonna do this, and actually, yeah, I could probably screen share with you, but you could probably just watch the stream. The lag's not too long if you want to see what I'm looking at. But I'm gonna get back to the regularly scheduled program.
I'm gonna drop off.
You could drop off as well. Yeah.
Talk to you later.
Hi, man. Thanks for coming by. See you. Every chat say bye. You guys are quiet in chat today. If I look over my shoulder, I'm looking at chat here. Got a couple questions, but all right. So on the agenda today, let's see. I just updated Binja to latest dev. First thing I wanna do is I want to check out Reflection because Reflection View was like something that we demoed 2 weeks ago, and we showed it off. It was like very, very new, and then it landed on I think dev later that day or later the next day. It was really soon. So everyone can play with it now. And I already saw some feedback from people who were like, "Oh, it's got some bugs." So I was like, "Sweet, that means they're using it. That's good." And yeah, there's definitely a couple things that it's working on, but it should be a little bit more robust. Let's see. Let's reset our window layout. Let's do this. Yeah, all right. So that's working. And I don't think we ever decided the sort of the argument people were discussing, of course, whether we wanted to go with the side reflection or top reflection. And actually, you'll notice that Peter's layout that he was just showing off, he had the side view for his flow graphs as well. So he was using it over there, like for that, which I thought was interesting. Cool. So reflections in dev. Oh, that's something else I should do is we could look at what else has let me move this over here. There's something else that's working on. Got all sorts of good stuff. All right, so a couple of things. What else has landed on dev recently? I'm just gonna look at the change log and see if there's anything see if there's anything good for that. All right. Let us look at plugin updates. So plugin updates this last couple of weeks. We've got Geeter Ninja has updated. Ginja. Not Geeter Ninja. That was the YouTube guy who's now got a different handle. Ginja. So this is the one that gets you the Ghidra decompilation side by side. So it's a little bit like your reflection view, except you can do both high level IL and then Ghidra's decompilation if you want to get a second opinion. and Martin's been updating that one a fair amount. The other new one, and this is one that I just worked on a little bit with Jamie, is not that one. DeGob, that's the name of it, right? There we go. So DeGObfuscate. This was a fun project. So Jamie had actually been working on this for a couple weeks. And to be clear, I also offered him if he wanted to join the stream, and he's like, nah, you know, I don't want to be on camera. But if you change his mind, if you happen to be watching and you want to join in, shoot me a message in Slack, and we can make it happen. Happy to have you on to talk about it. But in the meantime, we'll look at it a little bit. The DeGObfuscate actually also has a blog post that goes along with it. Let's see, Cryptos Logic. Actually, here, I'll just get to the Binary Ninja blog. Get the link from there. We cross-posted it. You may have seen. You follow our blog, and if you don't, you should totally follow the blog. So lots of good posts there. But the idea is there is a tool called Gobfuscate. And there it is. Gobfuscate is an open source tool that a lot of people are running that basically obfuscates your source code. So if you take your Go source code that's just got like a hello world, this is what it's going to produce. And it essentially doesn't really dynamically, at pre-compile time, it will rewrite all of your strings to turn them into an encryption function that will sort of inline replace these strings. And so every string is obfuscated when you run it on the output. And there's lots of ways that you could, kind of figure these out. You could run it through a debugger. You could use something like Unicorn and script it up and wrap it. But what Jamie was interested in doing, and he kind of had been talking to me for a couple months now about this, was like, he was like, hey, could I just emulate the IL? And I was like, you absolutely could emulate the IL. So he had kind of like this first version, which you can see under attempt 1, which was based on high level IL. And this was just because he was like, well, it's obviously the most succinct, easiest to read, kind of highest level of analysis. So surely that would be the best one for decompilation. And he also had not really an emulator, but like a sort of a state machine where he was just trying to kind of match the state and walk through the code, thinking that would be easier than a full emulator. And then as we were talking through it, I was like, you really should just emulate. Like it'll actually be easier in the long run to just do like an emulator and do it back on like low level IL, maybe medium level up. But low level IL is really pretty straightforward because it's low level IL is not that different than the assembly, right? It's more like just a generic assembly is a good way to think about low level IL. You're not turning things into variables, like they get annotated that way, but like it's really just stack reads and writes, right? It's memory reads and writes at low level IL still. You only get the high level analysis because it's done in medium level IL, and then it kind of gets propagated backwards down to assembly and low level IL. But low level IL itself is really pretty basic, and so he had like these obfuscated functions that the Gobfuscate was producing. And so he pulled up, I made a little snippet for him to run that just basically counted all of the different IL instructions of a given function. And this is what he got. So like these were all of the IL instructions that you would need to emulate all of these different obfuscated string functions, which it seems kind of like a long list. But then actually you sort of like look at the list and it's like XOR 2 values, like 0 extend, which is actually just a NOP, and like a Python number is always 0 extended. Go to is just set these, like these are all basically like one-liners. So if you go to the where's the actual GitHub repo? I think it's here in the end. Here we go. So you actually go to the plugin. Like this whole plugin, including like a bunch of like boilerplate, is 400 lines of code. Like it's not tiny, but like this is small for like a full-on emulator, right? So this is, oh, that's a good question. Was there a sample binary available with a blog post? I don't think there is. Oh, no, there is. There totally is. There's 2 here, and we put them on Binary Ninja. Oh, that's right, but we didn't make them available for download. So we embedded them from Binary Ninja Cloud. So if you wanted to see the binaries, pardon me while I log in. Oh, I can't do that in the VM. I can't use my passwords in here. I need to have a cloud login. Make a note of that to do that later. That's a good question, Josh. Yeah, let's I'll follow up because so I have these binaries. I think I'm pretty sure, yeah, they're public because he put them already on Binary Ninja Cloud, so I can drop those into chat. I'll put them into the Binary Ninja Slack afterwards for people that want to kind of play around with it. And they can run the plugin. Although it is worth noting, so if you actually look at the image showing it running, this is running on the 64-bit sample, I think, yeah. The string names, so the sample itself is actually obfuscated. Make a note on that. The string names themselves are also obfuscated. So I've been playing a little bit around with Go deobfuscation for the past couple of weeks, and Go's interesting, right? Because everything it's like all statically compiled. You get your standard library is always shipped with every binary. As far as I know, I don't think you can dynamically link the standard library in Go. I think that's like by design. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not an expert in Go. I've just been kind of tinkering with some of these bits of malware. And what is interesting is that the runtime actually has a huge amount of debug information in them. So if you open up one of these binaries, they have a section normally that is literally like a string table. It gives you the string name of every function, and it gives you the type information from every function. And if you want to obfuscate them, you're actually kind of limited in what you can do because the runtime uses that type information like during execution. So a lot of the early obfuscators were like, rename that section, but the data was still all there. And so if you have a heuristic, so there's actually a fair amount of like malware being written in Go apparently these days. And that's actually what the Binary Ninja, the Golang plugin here, the symbol restore, actually does basically that, right? So it will go through, although I've got a PR that I think I need to submit to this because I got another obfuscated sample that doesn't work on it. But what this like the plugin actually does is first it like literally just looks, is it called .go pcln tab? Great, you found the section, you're done. And then it will parse that section for symbols and structures. It'll create functions. It'll pull out all the information from them. But if it isn't named that, if they've named it something else, it does this other bit of analysis. And I think there's some bugs in here, or at least depending on maybe the version of the Go runtime that you've got, because or standard library, whatever the appropriate name is, it didn't actually work. I was not finding this work in the sample that I had, so I think there might be some work that needs to happen. But anyway, if you'll notice back on this. Also, how you guys doing? I'm like talking like way too fast. I take a breath, take a drink. Everyone have a good day. It's Friday. That's why I like doing these streams like Friday at the end of the day because everyone's hopefully relaxed. I can relax soon too. Excellent. Chase, glad to hear it. Yeah, there's the Dan's got a question about RTTI. There are plans, but there's no immediate plans. Unfortunately, it's not coming anytime soon. We'd love to have some better exception handling around C++ stuff, but it's on the list of, yeah, we know we want to do it. No, we don't have it on the calendar in particular. So it'll depend on as we finish other stuff up and how much we have available. But good question. Yeah, I'd like it. So if you notice that this sample, this is the Black Rota 64. Oh, and also part of the motivation for this. So like I said, Jamie and I have been talking about this. He'd been building this emulator to deobfuscate these obfuscated strings. And then last week, just I think a week ago today or a week ago Thursday, who was it? Somebody posted a write-up of this particular bit of malware. Yeah, Network Security 360 Network Security Labs. Released their analysis of Black Rota and all the obfuscations it does. Thanks, Firefox. Good job. You got it. And just talked about like a lot of the more structural things it does. And it explains like, oh, they do string obfuscations. And then it says, it does it with this decoding function. But I don't think they didn't actually do anything to automate the string decompilation. I don't think. Just sort of observe that it's there. This will increase a lot of work to reverse analysis. Well, yeah, or you could use this plugin, right? So that was kind of part of the motivation was like, oh, somebody else is looking at this too. They would really, this would be beneficial to finish this up. So Jamie and I both were. He did all the real like emulation stuff, and I just helped with the Binary Ninja packaging and some of the other bits. Kind of wrap that up this week just so we could get the plugin out. But oh yeah, let's go back to look at the emulation. VTIL project. I don't think I have. Virtual machine translation or media language. More ILs. Do I need to add them to my... Yeah, use for binary... Oh, hold up. This needs to go on my list. So I have... Let me find the... sheets. Find it. I have a chart that I keep track of nothing but intermediate languages and ILs. There it is. And I think this link should be public. So can I put this in chat? Let's see. Yeah, this should work. So this is a... Oh, no, I do have VTL on it. Good. Okay, so yes, I didn't know about that, apparently. I had forgotten that I knew about it. But clearly I didn't remember it. Oh, was this what Cam did? Yeah, or Cam did? Yeah. Yes. I have looked at this. No, this is pretty neat. In fact, I think they've got there's a Binary Ninja plugin to look at the VTIL itself, right? Because we already had like this graphic library, this analysis library, and so you can actually they lift and translate into their own IL, and then they built like a Binary Ninja plugin to be able to analyze it, just because we had a lot of the tooling around it, even though they're not using our ILs, which is cool that they were still interested in using that. So there's a plugin you can use to analyze VTIL. Sorry, yeah, I forgot the name, but yeah, I totally am aware of that one. That was a pretty neat project. Although I didn't actually watch Can like on Twitch. I guess there was like marathons of streams. Like I don't know how you do that. Like I get exhausted just doing like these little 2-hour streams. And they were doing like epic runs of it. So where were we? Yeah, I'm gonna look back at the Go deobfuscation. So like this is one of the things I kind of wanted to emphasize, and I think Josh did awesome on this too. So another key thing to point out is that Josh wrote emulator. Do you link to it? I think emulator is like 2 from here, right? Yeah, emulator, EMIL later. So Josh had also written an IL emulator a while ago, and published it. I think I don't remember if you were doing this, Josh, in your stream, or you did it for something else, but and it's fairly similar, right? Like the idea is that you basically handle each of these instructions, and is again like so this is actually predates the stream. Yeah, so this may have been for the blog post or something prior, but it sort of demonstrates how easy it is to like actually do emulation. Like a lot of people, I think, romanticize and like sort of like, oh, emulation's like really hard and fancy. Like no, you can do it in a couple of dozen lines of code for basic like emulators. And in particular, again, when we look at that list of functionality, like pop something off the stack, like pull the value. You want to XOR 2 things, like pull this stuff out and XOR it. And in this case, you'll notice this is actually how XOR is how the plugin builds its decryption string, right? So this plugin is just emulating all the code, which is manipulating bytes, moving things around, and then it's XORing them. Every time you XOR something, this just like copies it off, and at the very end, you've recreated the XOR decryption. Probably could, the next sort of step in evolution of this plugin and the obfuscation itself in the Go obfuscator or the Go obfuscate would be to just not just do like a straight XOR, but to do multiple rounds of it, to do like, you know, other weird stuff with it. In which case you'd want to change this, and you'd want to instead like instrument sort of the return, get the pointer and read out the string that way. So but again, it's actually not that hard, because like these are really simple operations. Go-to is set the current like emulator's like IP to whatever the destination is. Again, most of these are one-liners or very, very simple simple ones. Like compare not equal. Like, well, is that not equal to that? Like you're done. Like you get all of these objects. So to build like an emulator on top of it is surprisingly straightforward. So yeah, it looks like you've got 28 instructions that you've got to emulate, but it's 200 lines of code, and most of it's pretty straightforward. A lot of boilerplate, like reading the expression and getting the values and that stuff is pretty straightforward. And then you really are just looking at that stuff. So anyway, I think that was a really cool approach. Now, could you do it with like Unicorn, or could you do it? There's a couple of IDA plugins that could do it, or Ripper was another plugin for Binary Ninja, which I don't know if Patrick's maintained or not, because it's not in the plugin manager. I actually been meaning to check that out, so I want to go play with that one as well. But this one does basically that. It wraps Unicorn and it lets you pull it out and kind of more easily just emulate and run a function. So you could also totally use something like that. So if this was 2.7 only, it definitely is bit rotted. But I'm curious. It would be fun to play with it. Yeah, if it required Python 2. At one point there were talks about updating it. But I'm curious. Yeah, I think because that's also a useful thing to be able to like get more the power of like Unicorn into this. But the nice thing about the emulator is you really don't have to do anything. You notice even this one only supported specific architectures, right? Because it had to wrap the different semantics of ARM in each of these and make sure that it lined up with how the Ninja architecture worked. Whereas with an IL emulator, like it's IL, it's low IL. You get that sort of for free with any Ninja architecture plugin. In fact, I think we specifically went through and made sure that we got rid of all of the anything that could be architecture specific before we published it. We got rid of, like, it pulls the endianness actually out of the architecture, so it knows how to handle endianness. It pulls the registers dynamically based on the architecture module. It knows about like partial width registers. There's the stack pointer itself is defined based on the architecture module. So like there's no like if you look for EAX, like you can find leftover comments, right? Like that's all you get. So oh, that's cool. So Josh got Ripper working. I'd like to get that back in the plugin manager if possible, and might take a pass at that. I've been having fun like working on plugins lately. So that was something that I was up to this past week. What else? That was, like I said, that was a fun to work on, and thanks to Jamie for that, because that was a cool project to keep busy with. And if anybody else wants to, I think there are some improvements. If you're curious and want to play with this stuff, I think there's some work that could be done. The 32-bit sample didn't emulate as accurately. There was a couple of either bugs or some issues with it where a couple functions didn't process correctly. So if you're interested in this stuff and want to play with it, like I said, I'll post the links to the binaries in the Binary Ninja Slack. You can have a go at testing that, and I'm sure pull requests would be welcome. So, and one other thing that came up was snippets. I'm searching for Josh again, not snippets. So, no, they're already up over here. So I've actually been like, there's been a fair amount of snippets that keep coming out, and so I kind of wanted to highlight a couple of these, just because I really do think they're sort of useful little bits of code. And if you have suggestions for more too, definitely let me know, because the number one, there's like the two superpowers that Binary Ninja has are, one, the API, and sort of like the usability, the program analysis features that are built in, the fact that we really, really try to make like the API the most powerful, important way that you can use Binary Ninja. And then, we really love building good UI, but like API is the main focus. And then two, the ILs, right? Obviously, so doing our sort of our stack of ILs, kind of as our two big things that we focus on. But the API is like big, and so like to try to find like what you could do or even be aware of this stuff, I think is a bit of a challenge. So I wanted to show off a couple of other snippets. And if you have ever looked at my snippets, there is actually a snippet that downloads the snippets. So you can always just like copy and paste this into a snippet, and then rerun it, and it will automatically grab you the latest. In fact, I don't remember if I've done that before. Yeah, I did. So I've actually, so here's a good example. I've run this once on this box. Will it work again? Yes, automatically update my snippets. Cool. That looked like it worked. They reloaded. So, oh, that's funny. I have never noticed that you actually get an icon in the browse button on Linux. I don't think you do on Mac OS. But where did my window go? All right, I'm off and the other window's getting lost. Let me close down that Biner Ninja window. Anyway, yeah. All right. Oh, so I renamed user informed data flow, so this one just got changed. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it doesn't even let me select the file because it's not .py. So I should do that. So there were a couple of new ones that happened here. Toggle arm thumb. And I guess I'm really curious like what y'all think in chat, because one of the questions that like we constantly struggle with is you can do a bunch of stuff with snippets and with plugins built into Binary Ninja. And so what do we build as a first class feature? Like what are the UI menus? What are the actions that we build in like we really want to be first class? And what are the things that it's like, well, you can do that, but if you want to, here's a snippet. Like just go install a snippet manager, paste this thing, put a shortcut, and there you go. Because there is actually some advantage in not putting everything in the kitchen sink into the UI, because then the problem is that people can't wade through it and find the most common, most important stuff that they want. And so it's definitely, I think, a philosophical sort of like debate. If you have features that you guys have seen in snippets, you're like, no, that should absolutely be first class. Or if there's other things you're like that are in the UI that you're like, why is that even there? That's let us know, because I'm always curious where we're falling on that line. What was it was another new one of these. So yeah, like this was actually, I think this is it this one, navigate to offset, I think was one that somebody requested that actually I wrote a snippet. And then I closed the issue because I'm like, oh, here's a snippet, you can use this. And Peter's like, no, make that that actually is really, we should do that first party. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. We probably should have that. So this is kind of one of the things that brought up that particular topic of like, yeah, it's 9 lines of Python, but like it still might not. It doesn't mean that the issue is solved. We should probably add more to that. So I was curious what people think on that. And then I did make a minor tweak to this. Actually, was talking with somebody in Slack. Because I think I like this idea too of the extending out the current symbol list and current function list, right? So the current this sidebar used to just be functions, and then we added on data variables, right? So you can actually add variables to it. But it would be nice, and we still at some point plan to add like more of like a table view. And I will say like Gira has this like all over the place, like everything is a table view, which the nice part about that is that, you know, you can get sorting and filtering, and you get all these kind of properties and features of stuff that you might want to see. You can sort by size. Like that's a nice idea to be able to find like things that you might want to reverse engineer. Maybe you want to look at the biggest functions first. And so kind of putting that stuff in there is one of the things we've thought about. But I'm actually curious, like what are some of the features that would be most beneficial? So I think like, oh, and I've had this rant before on stream, so I won't do it again. But when I say size, I mean sum of basic blocks. And I mean sum of sizes of basic blocks, because basic blocks have sizes, but functions don't. Um, you can go out to the old stream or hit me up on chat for the full rant on the differences there. Um, but like, what are some of the other features, right? Because I think this or interesting units, like most connected. There's cyclomatic complexity. There's things with most internal edges, like the function that has the most edges. Even if the total bytes aren't very big, it has a lot of like edges. It means there's potentially a lot of logic, a lot of or maybe most conditional branches, or I don't know. Like you could have all sorts of measures of like what would be useful. So I'm curious about what would be the most part there. Here's another one. This is one actually I think that should be first party. I think eventually we should have better navigation, like find a variable definition for the current selection, like get the variable, and then actually more than that though, like actually I want to go back to where that variable is defined or created. Like that's there in the SSA form, but I think that would be really fun to put in there. I think that was it. Oh, create symbol is another one that I gotta get rid of because I accidentally had it without an extension in the gist. Gist or gist? I say gist usually. Don't forget. Yeah. So that's the rest of the plugins. Let's see. We got that. We got that. Man, I'm going through my to-do list too fast of all the things I wanted to talk about on stream. You guys have anything you wanted to anything we wanted to talk about while we're hanging out? I'm also gonna look. Let's see. There were a couple other plugins that were updated these last. So, oh yeah, that's a good one to talk about. SimGreat. So that's another plugin that got updated the last few weeks. I think this is gonna just go to the GitHub instead of the homepage. Oh, he needs to. Yeah. I need to add it to the README or something. SimGreat. There, I think it's just simgreat.com. Yeah. Yeah. So Travis Goodspeed and I forget who else. Is it EVM Sec? Somebody else. Were working on this idea. Like, there's been. I actually kept track at one point. Almost a dozen, more than half a dozen, less than a dozen attempts to have like a global symbol server, right? Like the idea that you could have like it's what IDA's Illumina server does. Excuse me, where the idea is that you can take a function you've never seen before, but get somebody else's symbols for it. There was, I need to dig up my old list. There was a whole bunch of prior ones. I think CrowdStrike had a thing that did this. CrowdRE, Bin Crowd was another one. There's actually been like a lot of these that will kind of spin up, and for whatever reason, like there's nothing that's really been that's hung around. Well, Illumina, I think so far still has, obviously, but Hexarise is maintaining that. So the idea being, you want to be able to get symbols, right? Like it makes reversing easier, obviously, if you have symbols. And if somebody else is already the thing you're looking at, well, it sure would be nice if you could just get their symbols. So there's a little bit of like interesting sort of like game theory there, tragedy of the commons and whatnot, of like, if you share all your symbols, then it benefits other people more. But if everyone's sharing all the symbols, then it benefits everyone more, and you included, not just the other people. So like, I'm certain there are people who are just it's like torrenting. Some people who are never sharing back to the crowd, and some people that are. But the idea is just that like none of these have been open source before now, right? There have none where the data and the implementation, everything was like fully open source. And so I think that's what's interesting about SimGreat, is that they even added an update in the blog for updating the plugin. But the idea is that they are specifically focused on ARM reverse engineering, and really we're like, hey, like there's all these like, you can do Flirt, you can do Flare, you can do Lumina, you can do Binja, you have all these different things. Wouldn't it be cool if there was plugins for everything that could all talk to one server, and we could have one place people could push their they're like symbol servers too, and you'd be able to get back names for all of your kind of standard libraries. And again, in particular for ARM and for firmwares, right? Like the idea being that for the static firmware, you'd love to be able to like name all your libraries, and that's what SimGrade is. So I really like the idea of having an open source kind of community resource for this that works like in all the tools, and everybody can have a plugin that can pull this data down. Um, I I think there's like an opportunity for improvement in the actual API and the actual function kind of matching potentially. But this is probably a case of like any code, and a thing that's working is better than the thing that's better that doesn't exist yet. So so I'm glad that they've kind of got it going. But I do think it would be interesting to see if it gets some more. Actually, I think this list has grown. I want to say this is more than they had the first time I checked it out. Oh, maybe yeah, the 21st. It's had. I guess it was the last time this database was updated. So maybe this is the same list. But anyway, I really like the idea. I do think the existing plugins were really basic. Like all they would literally do is they would just submit all of the bytes from each function to the API endpoint, and then just do like a log listing of all the function names back. So I modified the Binja plugin at least, and made it like a little bit kind of cleaner Binja plugin, and had it actually name all the functions. So it'll name all of it. You can trigger it to have it name all of them, or you can just run on a particular function. It doesn't give you this pop-up if you do it on, of course, all the functions. It just renames them all if they've not yet already been named. So that's kind of a neat plugin. And if you're interested in doing firmware reverse engineering, I think that's a nice capability, and it's cool that they're sort of like publishing everything. The server implementation is not yet public, but it will be. Knowing Goodspeed, of course, he's very neighborly, and it's the intention. I think they're just doing like it sounds like there were like prior implementations, some like old code left over, so it will be public at some point, and then I'd love to see more people contributing things. So that's a cool plugin to highlight as well. It looks like the instruction highlighter actually. I don't think I have any. Just install that plugin. I don't know if there's any sample binaries to test it on. No, there is. Is it in the GitHub repo? Yeah, in the samples folder. Yeah, so we can actually get a BNDB. And we've got our SimGrade plugin installed. What do we lose here? Which plugin? There's a. I think I have a different plugin installed, which is using. Oh. Install. Let's turn off. Which one is doing this? Shouldn't be any of these. What am I missing? Oh, dwarf import. Yeah. Oh, that's right. I think I manually cloned that. Binary Ninja plugins. Yeah. I think I was doing some hacking on the dwarf import plugin from here. And I don't. Oh, the hotkey doesn't work on this one. All right, let's try this again. There go the errors. That's much better. So analysis update happened. That's a relatively recent change, right? It tries to be a little bit more careful about when it actually triggers reanalysis, which is nice. Yeah, so I should be able to. All right, so this one's already had the database run on it, but here's a cool trick. A BNDB file, and you should be aware of this if you're publishing a BNDB file, has the original binary fully inside of it. So if I actually just do save as, I can save the file contents outside of the BNDB, and then reopen the original file. And so we can get the original one. What? This one has all the names still. It just has symbols. Let me try SimGrade, see what it does. I remember we want the whole program search. Let's Search 64 functions. Something happened. Oh, there we go. It actually added demangled names. Let's try this. Let's do this instead. Let's actually strip it. Oh, 32-bit strip on a 64-bit Linux. I'm gonna have to ask the internet for that. Probably util strip Ubuntu 32-bit recognized. Let's see if that does it. Unless somebody else actually I should just try to oh, because it's ARM. It's not because it's 32-bit. Come on, you guys didn't call me out on that? Somebody should have called me that. Yeah, I need the cross compiling version of strip. So Ubuntu build tools ARM cross compiler. If there's any convenience. Yes, I would like the ARM cross compiling toolchains, please. Yes. Utils ARM. Actually, that's probably all I need, I bet. I bet that'll do it. Let's see if that does it. Oops. Yeah, there we go. That strip. Let's try that. Good note, orig. There we go. Now it's stripped. Cool. Oh, we have no more symbols. Oh no. Cool. Now SimGreat function program search. Let's see what it looks like. Ooh, there we go. Cool. So that's it doing its thing. I don't remember. Yeah, I didn't make those settings yet. I need to do another PR because right now it's hard coded to their server, but theoretically, like you could actually have your own local instance if you wanted. Hey, T Rose, how's it going? Welcome. And I like that you're actually chatting. This has been a very quiet chat day. I'm no good. We have I don't know if you just tuned in. We're doing talking about a bunch of different plugins mostly. We've covered the DeGObfuscate plugin. We were just looking at SimGreat 2. Peter showed off some really cool fancy. You're gonna want to check that out in the VOD. Afterwards, Peter showed off some really neat stuff that Binja's like kind of our R&D department, I would say, working on kind of more far future functionality, which has some neat stuff in it. So check that out. Nah, no worries. You don't have to say anything. It's just nice to interact with people. I think I don't have the skill of talking to the camera the way that some streamers can keep it up for great lengths of time. After a while, I need to know that I'm not speaking into a void. But no, you're all good. So yeah, so SimGreat. I mean, we opened up a binary. It was a strict binary, so we didn't have names for any of the functions. And we ran this new plugin on it called SimGreat, which is here. And we got some symbols from the symbol server and was able to add it. And I think the main usage actually is not even for like we've got this elf, but we've got like this firmware. We've got a firmware that exists. There is a really interesting kind of chicken and the egg problem, because if you actually had a firmware, this would be kind of interesting. So like right now, SimGreat's sole functionality is you give me 18, 16, I think it's 18 bytes of a function, and then I will match it against just like this fixed database, which is really good for very fast matching. It's easy to calculate. It's going to very quickly, you could look up a massive database of functions and return results really quick, which is nice. It's less flexible, right? Like any minor change and you're gone, but that's fine for what you want. You want to match exact versions and stuff in this. But what would be super interesting is like, look, if I detect a libc function, or I detect any of these known kind of like libraries that they're including in their database, um, it would uh, like knowing that there's one libc function from that exact version of libc, I would really like to be able to say, oh, then you probably have all the other functions. Go sweep my firmware for that too. And that's actually one interesting artifact. The way that this plugin works right now is you can't do that. You can't say like, oh, give me all of the other first byte fingerprint matches from these functions. And Levin, I'll talk about how the matching happens in a second. But like you can't actually get back those other patterns, because if you did, you actually could have much more accurate function identification. Because one of the common problems with firmware is like you don't know where the function starts are. Like with PE files and all these other files, even if you don't have symbols, you often have some information about where functions live. You have Mako recently. Obviously, Apple's got a bunch of information for like their function starts and control flow guard. A lot of these implementations like give you a list of these are all the valid functions in the binary, which makes the job of like a tool like Binary Ninja way easier. But firmware, you don't have that, and so it's actually function accuracy. I forget the correct Twitter handle of the German professor, PhD, I think professor now. No, you're associate professor. I forget the title. I'm going to get it wrong. Who's been doing this lab in particular has been doing a bunch of research on function accuracy and identification. I, of course, like the results because Binary Ninja came out looking really good. But the point was like they're taking firmware images, not just like these PE Mako L files where you have a little bit more structure. And the firmware images, unless you know that exact structure of that firmware, or you've got like interrupt vector tables, or you've got like other structures that give you a list of all the functions, it's actually hard to find all the functions. So I think it'd be really interesting to have a version of SimGrate where you could actually sweep for functions, like find a couple of candidates, submit them, and then once you find a match, make that function at that location, trigger your linear descent analysis from there, and then go find all the other hashes, make all your functions at those locations, and then do like a regular linear sweep, you would actually have much higher function accuracy, identification accuracy, I think, which would be interesting. Yeah, Evan, exactly. Like I don't even think you need to have it as high as 80%, because I think generally speaking, like I think you could actually have it much lower and still have it be useful. Like I think you can only match a smaller number. I don't know what that number is. I think that's like an experimental question. You have to like find out. That would be cool. Somebody should work on that. Ping Goodspeed and be like, hey, give me access to the server and I want to help build out like the next gen version that also can handle like function identification, and then modify the plugins where they can do like a sort of iterative linear sweep. That would be super cool. I think that would be really useful. As for how the matching happens, that is a good question. So let's go back to that. It's this one. It's really straightforward. It's basically just, so this is all it's the query, the server stuff. The actual function stuff is here. The actual matching basically just pulls the first n bytes. Well, I actually hard coded it as len. So it literally just reads that many bytes, right? And if there's not that many bytes, then it's you fail. It will only look up. The function must have at least 18 bytes in the function, or else it's too small and it won't be returned. And then it encodes those bytes as hex, sends them to the server on this API call. The server implementation is not public, but presumably it's literally just a database of function name and hash. Hopefully they have provenance, right? And that's where I'm getting with like that like library matching. So you could do like a broader match. That would be interesting. I don't think in the APIs it matters, but thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it. So yeah, that's the, and this is the part where I was saying I think there's also some room for improvement in terms of this implementation. Like this is a very, very simple implementation. Yeah, so like architecture independent versions of function identification is something we've thought about a lot. And in fact, when Steven was our intern 2 summers ago, Like his first task was to build what became our SIGKit library, and the signature matching. Oh, that's that one, the blog post. And the very first thing he tried was to make it on the IL. Like that was our goal. Yeah. So the blog post specifically talks about how we wanted to do it with an IL, and then we shipped a version without it. It's still smarter than the way that, SimGreat works, because this will do things like mask off things that are likely to change. And it also focuses a lot on making the search very performant. Where it's a tree-based search, it's not just looking like a fixed GUID, like in a key value store kind of database. It's meant to be very, very performant, because for this case, you're doing like you may be doing lots and lots of function kind of matches locally very, very quickly, and you don't want to require like a separate like database potentially. Although SQLite's pretty fast, and you could put stuff just in there if you wanted. But performance, you want it to be good. You even noticed that there was a little bit of a delay on SimGreat using the plugin, although some of that's going to be HTTP overhead. But like version 2 of this library, we would like to have kind of be IL based. Yeah, I think it would be interesting to have an IL-based signature matching. We kind of collectively in the company have been talking about like how we could do it, and we think we have a way forward. It didn't turn out to be like the magic thing that we were hoping. Like, oh, it'll just be easier and better, and everything will work great. You implement on the IL. Actually, I think some of the stuff that Peter's working on, which related to the stuff he was demoing with like the flow analysis, might be even better and more interesting for function matching. We have some other stuff. So we have another, like I said, like long-term researchy project spinning up soon, where we're going to be investigating how to do kind of more of a fuzzy matching. So hopefully we'll have some more results on that front. But yeah, like I think it's a really interesting idea. I think there's the possibility of several sort of improvements in the collective RE tooling on that front. Oh, yeah, Evan, that's a good idea, right? To like sort of fill in the gaps. And again, that requires the server to have saved more metadata than I think they have right now. I mean, I think they still have the libraries, the binaries, so they can pull it out. But yeah, like even just knowing the gaps in the order of your functions and stuff. I don't know. So then you also get into weird stuff like, what if it's a minor version change, right? So if you've changed the version slightly, where most of the functions matched and didn't change, or you've recompiled it and like a couple functions got optimized differently. When do you and don't you want to apply? It's like you need like lower confidence. You need like these are definitely these functions, they exactly match, and these are like maybe it's right. I think there's some. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. Yeah, so the problem with, I don't know, you could try mixing both IL and native. I think you're better off though either just making IL work really well or doing something like flow based. Um, but yeah, there's no reason that stuff couldn't work together. Wait a minute. I just put together I think who EVM is that I know in a different context. That's really funny. I think I was literally talking to him today about something else in a totally different context. Is EVM Sec one of the all-star maintainers? Then that's hilarious. And I'm uh oh, okay. Yeah, that's really funny. I totally missed that. I'm really glad you brought that up. This is a very small community, it turns out. Yeah, we were actually on the call for something different earlier today. I think that's hilarious. Good. Well, good. I can next time I'm on a call with them, we can talk about some great stuff. That's cool. Yeah, I think there's some that would be cool. Oh, that explains. Yeah, so they used All-Star then for the SimGreat, like that was all of the corpus of stuff with symbols and things. Yeah, so All-Star is that's a really cool resource that I think it's worth repeating more. They didn't use all of All-Star for sure because there's a lot more to it, but yeah, no, like this, like the stuff they had was definitely a subset. Um, sim great. Wait, symptom of COVID, I think came up there. It's funny. So if we look at the database, yeah, like this came from All Star. This none of this. Well, maybe All Star also has that, but All Star is like a superset, right? Because it has like lots of Debian packages and stuff. It's one of its main things. In fact, I don't know. I haven't looked into it recently. But yeah, no, but it's a really cool research resource where if you want to be doing some of this like function matching and testing and stuff, they've already got binaries and packages, so you can get the ones with symbols. You can strip them out, and then you can do these kind of comparisons. Exactly like I was just doing, right? Like I took the binary with symbols, I stripped it, and then I reran it to test the analysis. Yeah, no, I think this they've got some other stuff in. Well, and again, I know Travis said he had gotten some of this from resources that he had in the past, but that's cool. Yeah, so I think I'm really curious though, right? Because I think what's going to happen is once you start to scale SimGreat to like the scope of an all-star, I don't know if like strict key value hash lookup is the way to go, right? That's where you're going to actually want something fancier like this tree-based matching that Stephen talks about here, right? So go, like, I am not the expert on it. But like it's, I guess like the simple way is like a tree-based, right? Like you can find common prefixes, right? Like literally just take your 16 bytes that you're matching, and the very first byte, everything that matches that first byte goes down one analysis pass, and then everything that also has the same second analysis. If you have like this full tree, you can look it up that way. But you wouldn't want to just have strict GUID key value lookup, which is my guess for what's going on now. But maybe they're doing something fancy, or they can potentially too. That's the other thing, right? They can expand it in the background for SimGreat. But that's cool. Yeah. I should point that out. I missed anything else in chat while we were shooting the breeze on that? Yeah, and if anybody in chat is interested in doing this kind of research and building these sort of things, Binary Ninja is still hiring, or Vector35 is still hiring. So shoot us an email and a resume. I'm allowed to advertise on my own stream, right? Hopefully I don't run afoul of whatever it was that bit Josh when he let us stream our launch party when we were talking about it. I think I'm allowed to advertise my own stuff on it because nobody's surprised when Vector35 guy talks about Vector35. That's right. I gotta like get demonetized for all of my background music. At some point, I might actually put some background music in here. We'll see if y'all think it would provide value. All right. What else is on the to-do list? Let me go back to my list of plugins. We got SimGreat. Update instruction slicer. Yeah, I was gonna look at this one. I don't remember. Instruction slicer. Oh, you know what? That's right. This one hasn't been. Yeah, no, I do all my. Yeah, I have everything separate on my side. If I added audio, in fact, I'm not even sure I would be able to hear it. It would just be, it would be here. I have overkill amounts of gear. I think I've already shown it off before, but like the setup is a little ridiculous. So the mixer audio I can pull off separately really easily to just get my stuff. Y'all can see I've got Twitter up in the background. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, no worries. No, I don't assume everybody's seen everything. That's why I showed it again. But let's see. Yeah, so instruction slicer. I wanted to look at this. Let's look at, where did instruction slicer go? Did it open up? It did. Oh man, come on. We gotta like let's spruce this plugin up. We gotta Oh, that's right. This was the update to get Python 3 compatibility. Actually, had been broken for a little while. So let's open up. I need some more interesting binaries than these basic ones that I've been using on stream for a while. Make a note of myself next time to have something more fun. All right, so this is not going to be all that useful. Well, how does the slicing actually work? So, oh, that's what I'm going to do on stream too. I forgot about that. I don't think I showed it, but I've got a re-architecture I'm planning of this right-click context menu because this is a mess, right? Like I am embarrassed to be a Binja dev, and this is what our right-click. Like we love clean, pretty UIs. Like I've cluttered up my UI a little bit here, but like we like to be well designed, and then like we barf all over the screen when you have this. I'm actually just glad it's not two columns, um, because like it straight up will be if you put more plugins in. It's so yeah. This is awful. To be fair, part of the reason why is because I don't like use that all that often. Like I use the action system, right, and so I will um, trigger that. Where is well here? What does instruction slicer do? Let's look at it. Yeah, it's gross, right, Marcus? I mean, that's embarrassing. So actually, here, let me pull my list here. I think I linked it in our text editor. Sure, let's do this. Do I have to make a new document? No. Oh, that is the word. No, what is wrong with you? That highlighting. How do I change the? Can I make your color scheme not look awful in this window manager? I like oblivion. We'll try that. Yeah. All right. Okay. Whew. All right. So we've got an editor. Let me pull my. So every little insider baseball, every week at Vector 35 HQ, well, not in person anymore since COVID, but we do like our big stand up chat about Binary Ninja, and we talk like throughout the week, obviously on Slack and coordinate kind of remotely, and different people who are working on different topics will coordinate more frequently than that. But at least once a week, we all get together and we just have like a big sort of powwow on like whatever the topics of the week are. And the nice thing about that is that like anything that we ate, we've either kind of tossed around um, about like discussing as a group that we didn't really resolve in just general chat. We'll put in there. It's like, okay, let's try to make a decision like during this meeting. And so I can go back to those notes. There it is. And I can find my, there we go. Find my, no, I don't know my usual hotkeys work to make it bigger. So let's, oh, right. Well, I could probably, do I view zoom or do I just change the font size? What do we do best? Let's see. View, yeah, we change the font size. Do not use system. Let's increase it. That's not a great, okay. I mean, sure. Anyway, y'all can see that. Um, so yeah, so here's kind of my current workflow. And I don't know if, I mean, if y'all think it's interesting, I might actually like finish setting up my dev environment on this VM and do some like Binja UI plugin work and rebuild this on stream next week. And you can see like the super secret sauce under the hood of our secret repository. It's pretty we're pretty open with most of it. Y'all are reverse engineers anyways. So this is my proposed refactor. So like I said, here's the current menu, which is like all over the place. I mean, just like look at this. There's literally copy as, paste from down here, but then copy and paste up here. Something like patch already being a submenu is nice. And depending on where you're at, like in graph view, if you're on a thing, you'll get more options. If you're not in Hilo, let's like do like a, yeah. You can change like the branch logic. So like some have submenus, but for example, all plugins, I believe, should live inside of a plugin submenu by default. And if they also do submenus, cool, that's fine. But like all the plugins should just be inside of a right-click plugin menu. And then if somebody really wants to pollute this one, they still can. They can do it like with UI plugin stuff, but all the plugin register APIs would not do that. I think that would be cleaner. And then there's sort of like all of these function related things. Well, yeah, let me go back over to my list here. So here's my current proposal on re-architecting the right-click menu. First, yeah, copy, paste, copy as, transform. This should be like one kind of grouping, right? They should all be together. I don't think they should be submenus. I think you should always be able to get to these. These should really be first class right-click menu options. I don't know what to do with highlighting. I'm not sure whether I want that living off the. Feel free to vote in chat your vote. Should you immediately be able to like right click and choose highlight block? So I can even there's highlight block, or should you have to go under a sub menu to dig that out? I'm not sure what the right way to go is there. So let's see. Yep, yeah, yay! The only thing we did right: patches in a sub menu. Submenu, yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the highlighting is automated as well. Or you add a bind a hotkey or like, and that's again, the other thing is that like all this stuff, like I can just hit from here. I can bind that to a custom hotkey. I feel like it's faster to use the command palette to do the stuff, which is in my defense. Again, that's why it's lasted so long. The reason it's been able to get away with being so awful is because like most of the time, you bind hotkeys or you use a command palette or you have these other ways to get to it. But it's gross. It needs to change. So yeah, I think so. Thanks, Marcus, on that feedback. I agree. So we'll put these, and I guess they could live under. I think it's just we could just do one called highlights, and then I don't have my bin binding to this thing. Yeah, I think that works. Patch and highlight. Yeah. So the other thing we have to do is proximity, right? Like we can organize things related near each other, whether or not they're in the same submenu. Which, like I said, will be the case for like copy and paste stuff. Yeah, like patch and highlight modify. That's not great though. It's kind of overloaded with patch, and it's not like transform is also modification. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I could. Anyway, so I'm gonna think about this a little bit more. I'll probably make this the topic of if y'all think that might actually be interesting enough. Build this out at least for some of the stream. We'll probably do a regular catch up, review some plugins, see what's happened. But ooh. Oh, in the Slack that doesn't retain history. That's fine. No, so yeah, I'll go through the Slack history is still available. You can like export it. So I'll go look at Marcus. That's a good point. Yeah, exactly. And again, like it should be hidden by default, and you've got the command palette. So like if you even if you use this stuff a lot, it's actually going to be faster for you to do highlight cyan via the command palette than right click, patch or modify, highlight block, site like just do it that way. I think that's definitely the better way to go. All right. So I'm gonna leave this. Actually, let's save this. Highlight refactor or right click context refactor. Yeah, I think that's, and honestly, some of this we could even just remove, like get rid of it. Although we do have a bit of a discoverability problem, right? Like I don't want to hide too many things because it's already the case that people can't find some of this stuff. People don't realize that the command palette exists to be able to trigger things, and so having stuff just buried under submenus is I think better than not having it at all for discoverability. Um, but we don't have tips on startup, right? Like we've actually debated that, but man, like it's so funny too because there's like a lot of the apps that have tips on startup have really great tips, and you should totally read them. You will learn things that will make your life better. But I still turn that off reflexively. Um, yeah, yeah. Gidra's got them. I mean, Ida has their. It's not tips. They just have their analysis stuff. Do they have a tips on startup? I forget. I don't remember if Ida has tips on startup. Like again, like I think there's probably legit good tips in there. Just I never want to see them. Like I always want to get to the thing that I'm doing it for. All right. Is there any other plugins? So we did the right click context. Oh, instruction slicer. Did we figure out how that got triggered? Instruction slicer registers for an address. Backward slicing from this address. All right. Cool. Let's open up this. And what was the text? Backward slicing. That didn't do what I expected. Linear view, get an address, slicing. I don't need to restart, do I? Yeah, no, Marcus, I'm not going to add tips on startup. This is honestly, that's some of the purpose of like this stream, right? Is so that people will realize stuff when they're like, "Whoa, wait a minute, how'd you do that? Like, I didn't know you could do that." Like, I think people honestly are going to pick up stuff in some ways. Not everyone. Everyone can learn differently, but did that plugin work? I didn't see any errors. There's no errors for the slicing plugin on startup. I should be able to SF. Oh, come on. That is the worst. The function name is SF slicer. Okay, so import, what's the instruction slicer? Oh, but I got to do remember if it's, I think this gets replaced with an underscore. It's a plugin manager managed plugin. If you want to manually call into stuff, it's a little bit of a weird path. Have you ever heard of anyone having an issue with the snippet editor being cut off at the start? Oh man, snippet editor has bugs. The guy who maintains that doesn't know what he's doing in Python, so I'm not surprised at all. Oh right, that's me. No, I don't think so actually. So the one thing I will say is that the snippet editor does try to maintain its last state using some settings. I think it does, and I've actually got I've got a version of it. Q settings. Yeah, so I do save window geometry in the Q settings file. So yeah, screenshot would be great. And I would recommend, the thing I was gonna recommend is kill so depending on what platform you're on, Q settings, which, oh, do I document this? This is an annoying place. Q settings get stuff in a weird spot. I want to say it's, well, maybe it is up to locate ninja, grab -I vector. So there's the repositories. Dev. Ooh, you can see all of our secret source code. I do have it checked out. I don't see. Yeah, I don't see. Config it somewhere. Ah, there it is. I think it's at vector. Yeah, so I think on Mac OS, sorry, on Linux it gets stored here .conf. On Windows it's in the registry, and then on Mac it's like in library preferences in your user folder. Um, I maybe I have the document somewhere. Let me see. Do I document? It should probably be right here. I don't think it is, unless it's under Q settings or settings. I've written this somewhere. It may just be an answer to a like a discussion question. Troubleshooting maybe? No. Nope. I don't see it there. Yithon. It's like at the left edge. The only other thing I can think of is if you have like a mouse and it's scrolled like the interview. Oh, you don't have the lines? Oh, make sure you have the latest version of Snippets. There have been some updates. So you can go in the plugin manager and if there's like an update available, you can see that you'll have an update button on the plugin. But there might be, because I did push something a week or two ago, depending on when you installed it, that I think has added some stuff. So it might, like these line numberings weren't there before. So if you are seeing Python there, yeah, let me know. Let me know. Like hop into Slack, and we can play with that. Because it should not be that way. Oh, right. So one of the changes I actually have coming is right now it's a modal dialog. And I had a good reason for doing that initially, specifically like crash red bugs or something when I didn't. But I think the last time I tested it, it worked fine. So I probably just did it wrong first. So I probably am going to push an update at some point where you'll be able to like get more control over the window geometry. You can resize or move to a different monitor because it is a little annoying that you're stuck. Although I think so, I'm in like a. Can I? I'm in like one of those weird tiling window managers. Not weird, they're great. I'm just getting used to one again. I'm trying to get back into it. Um, and so I can move it here. But anyway, yeah. And if you guys have other suggestions for snippets, I think the next big feature I want to add to it is I really want tab completion. I want the same tab completion you get in the Python console in snippets, and it's a little bit more complicated. But I feel like I should be able to do it still. So I wanna play with that. That would be super nice. We were looking at slicing and why it wasn't showing up because it's registered for address. So yeah, somebody actually mentioned bpython recently. The blue was a little hard to read, I think, here. Oh, I mean, like I helped work on Glenn did more of the UI side, but I actually built the Python completion that's here. And I think we even do something. So neither IPython, neither the regular Python REPL, Python 3 REPL. I can type. I swear. I thought that got fixed. Oh, I might be using the stable build. Yeah, I think I am actually. bv.function 0. I can't tap complete. Oh no. Because it won't go through array lookups for like performance reasons. They're worried about it. But I think vpython. I can do the right case. BinLS. I've done this like same. I always open that. Oh, they don't do it either. Now, watch this. Oh, oh, what is this? Oh, look at the Binja tab completion. So we'll do lookups to arrays because we're only doing this on stuff you've created. So you can shoot yourself in the foot with it for some stuff, but it's um, yeah, that's something that I bet B Python has it as an option. Um, B Python complete array lookup. Let's see if it's a setting. Oh, no, no, I want no. Oh, that's why I want B Python. Thank you. There are great results. There we go. Here's the issue. Uh, I mean, it looks like they can't, and it's never made any progress. Interesting. Um, ooh, that's an interesting idea, Evan. Yeah, like using a third-party editor. Yeah, like, well, honestly, so the other thing we've talked about is we would like to have a better built-in editor in Binja in general. Like, we would love to have like Monaco embedded, um, because which is what VS Code uses. Um, because like we already have QWeb engine like built into Binja, so actually spinning up and having like a little embedded web view, which is actually like a version of the Monaco editor, gets you crazy nice features that don't cost much in terms of performance or development time, right? Like you get like this fancy little scroll bar, you get syntax highlighting, you get line numbers, you can add on some really really nice features without much work. And we could throw that in all sorts of places. Like, what if you want to, compile C source, right? It would be great if you actually had C syntax highlighting here and line numbers and all that stuff. Like like having like a standard Monaco editor view that we could use is something we'd really like to have more generally. And if we did, then like snippets could just take advantage of that. So I actually hacked on. Somebody had um, there's an existing open source project that I butchered badly to get the current line numbers and highlighting in there. Mainly because I ripped it out so that it used our theme colors. Q code editor. Here we go. So I literally pulled this project, um, and which did Qt based or PyQt, PySide, whichever it was at the time. Anyway, pulled that into this and just rewrote it, hacked it up to use Binja colors. But yeah, no, it would be really nice to have much better editing. Like, look at that, you can get like highlights and previews and stuff like in that little. That's pretty. They've put a lot of work into Monaco into making it look nice. Um, so I'd very much like to have that um, built in here. The only problem with having like your own defined editor is like I don't know if you my screen time on my iPad is warning me that it's gonna shut me off in 5 minutes. I'm gonna tell it that yes, I am allowed to keep watching YouTube. Also, I just realized I'm like turning away from the mic and talking very quietly, so you'll probably couldn't hear me very well. It's a bad habit. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know how it would work to have like an environment variable, or I mean, we could just do a setting or whatever. But if you specified an external editor, I just don't know if the workflow would be as nice if like you couldn't embed it here because we don't have like a terminal that we can put it in. Um, and so like you'd have like some disconnected process that you'd have to like spawn off, and you have like a separate window. And I feel like it just wouldn't be as convenient as being able to like quickly edit and save and use these kind of like buttons in here. So I don't know if it actually makes the workflow better. I think Monaco or something like that is a better long-term approach, but I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. There was a similar someone published a VS Code IDA scripting integration that was kind of similar for the same reasons. And that's like more interesting to me because I think VS Code is great, but also um, you can actually build like I don't actually have a VS Code window open. Um, videos no. Because you actually having like the snippets available here and then just being able to like be like, yeah, please go run this in my other Python interpreter that's running over there, I think would be more interesting too. I don't know. There's some stuff there. I think Monaco is actually doable and something we actually recently even came up with. Yeah, I don't know why instruction slicer is not working for me. Also, who in chat gets this reference for their handle? He's the first person who's gonna answer that correctly. Can you guys see it? The font is big enough. Yep. Yes. That's a serial killer. What's the reference though? Like, where's it from? Especially elite speak way spelled like a cereal that you eat. That's from it's from something. Yep, it is from Hackers. That was Matthew Lillard's character's name. A serial killer, I think. Right? Somebody can fact check me, but anyway. All right, I'm fading. I gotta go take care of the kids here. I'm probably gonna wrap it up pretty soon. I mean, in the early '90s, it was awesome. Like it stood up reasonably well. They're not wrong. Risk is gonna change everything, so it's done it pretty good. But like you can be forgiven. It was not like real hacker culture. Uh, but anybody got any questions or? Exactly, they nailed it. Oh man, I could gush on the M1 for so long. Ooh, just wait. I can't wait until we get our M1 native build out. As soon as Qt and PySide have it resolved, like we are like ready to ship. And we've been doing testing with just the headless core, and it is unbelievable. Like for some workloads, the M1 outperforms a Threadripper. Like it is really fast. And that's on like a Mac Mini, right? Like it's tiny little box. It is and I mean, okay, so to be fair, part of this has to do with some parts of Binary Ninja's analysis are single threaded, and you get lock contentions, other issues like multi-threading that pass a certain number of cores. It's not as there's like some caveats there, but like just the fact that it's even close uh, is mind blowing, right? Like those things are. Rusty's exact quote when had been doing a lot of testing was essentially like already high expectations exceeded, mind blown, right? Like we knew it was gonna be really good, and we were looking forward to being impressive. But if I think Apple's about to eat the world in terms of like laptop usage, because like there's just no reason to get unless you really need x86 for VMs or something like there is not a reason to get an Intel laptop at this point. Like they're definitely gonna be taken over unless something drastic happens. But I don't know. It's interesting. Not to mention Rosetta 2. I'm really looking forward to seeing some teardowns of Rosetta 2. Like, how are they actually pulling that off? I think that'll be really interesting. ARM does. Yeah, no, ARM has built-in VM instructions. So, in fact, you can already use, there's some native APIs in macOS that people have been using to run Linux VMs inside of M1 Macs. But they're ARM Linux VMs. Like, you can't run Windows natively unless you have like an ARM Windows. And then, like, what's the point? Like, nobody cares about ARM Windows. Like, right? Like, oh, there we go. So just told me my time limit's up. I need to see their comments. People are talking. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that like but what's the security boundary for Rosetta 2? I don't know if that's super interesting. For like Privesks, I guess. I don't know what the state of like Privesk vulnerabilities are on Mac. Like at one point they were so bad you could just like type them in. There were like several that you could literally type on the command line. But I may just be out of date on that. Maybe they've done a good job like killing off that workflow. But if you're already like running somebody's code, it's like a good example is like the Binary Ninja plugins. Like we don't really secure them a ton. Like we want to make sure they're not malicious. And I review most of the plugin submissions, like when I approved to put them in the plugin manager. But like you're running somebody else's Python, so you kind of like if it's at all sensitive or you rip the file or contents, like you better air gap that stuff or put it in at least a VM or something, because you're running other people's stuff. You gotta just pick your battles. I don't know. I mean, it's not to say that there couldn't be Rosetta 2 security implications. I'm just curious what they are. So, well, thanks everybody for chilling. I had a good time with y'all. We'll be back next week. I don't know. I have to look at the calendar, see what the schedule is for December and the holidays. But yeah, everybody have a good weekend. We'll see y'all later, and take care. Stay safe.